My husband and I just got paid. This is what we do after every paycheck to keep our money super organized. The very first thing we do is look at our paychecks. This might sound obvious, but there's still people involved in the accounting of companies and corporations. And there's still people who totally miss errors in their paycheck because they never bother to take a look. In examining both of our paychecks, I know that we should be receiving $25,669.08 every month. And this is where I start my quick algebra. I look at the amount of taxes that are withheld from both of our paychecks. In total, that's $4,563.28. Based on these two numbers, I know that I'm being taxed about 18%. That number might seem low compared to our gross annual income, but that number reflects tax incentives related to being a military family stationed in a high cost of living area. The next thing I look at in our paychecks is how much we're contributing to our job-sponsored retirement accounts. Every month, we're contributing $2,658 to our respective retirement funds. And here I'm looking for three things. First, I want to make sure that this amount is being automatically withdrawn every month from our paychecks. That means that I don't have to think about this investment, it never hits my checking account, and I don't have to actively make a decision every month for how much I'll be investing in my retirement account. Second, I'm making sure that I'm investing enough to meet my employer match. For both my husband and myself, we get up to a 5% employer match, meaning if we put in 5% of our paycheck, they'll give us an additional 5% to match the amount of investment that we're making in ourselves. Which is why the last thing that I do with this number is calculate the percentage of my gross pay that I'm saving within this account. And I want to make sure that that percentage, in this case about 10%, exceeds what's required for me to get the maximum employee match, 5%. If the second percentage is bigger than the first percentage, I'm doing a good job because I'm getting all of the free money that my employer is offering. Once I subtract taxes and my automatic investments, that leaves me with my net pay, which is what I actually see in my bank account. In our case, it's $18,447.80. We get paid twice a month, which means that every payday we see $9,223.90 hit our account. In my household, it's left to the family budgeter to figure out how we're going to distribute that money. Take a wild guess who's in charge of that in my household. Next, I head over to my computer for the next step in ensuring that I have a fully organized financial life. I start by logging into my bank account to ensure that both paychecks have hit our checking account. Once you've confirmed that all of your money is in your bank account, you can move on to the next step of organizing your money by actually giving all of those dollars a specific job. I used to do all of my money organization on a spreadsheet, but these days I'm obsessed with the YNAB app, which stands for You Need a Budget. Let's take a peek inside my budget to see how I organize every dollar. When you're brand new to this app, they do have some suggested categories, but it's totally customizable so that you can make your budget make sense to you, which is one of the reasons why I love it, since on this channel and in my life, I'm all about having a hyper-personalized system that is just right for you, because there's rarely a one-size-fits-all solution. I've divided my categories in kind of a weird way. Since we get paid on the 1st and 15th of each month, I've divided my household bills based on what needs to be paid between the 1st and the 15th, and what needs to be paid between the 15th and the 30th, 31st, or 28th day of the month if we're in February. You know, the second half of the month. I've further divided these bills into essentials. These are things that I can't do without. In the event that we both lost our jobs and we really needed to keep afloat, this would be the bare minimum that we would need to not vastly change our lifestyle. We would still need to pay the mortgage. I'd like to keep the water on. We do have auto insurance because we'll likely need our cars no matter what. And we also have HOA fees related to living in our neighborhood. So at the very least, these are the 4 things that must be paid with the paycheck that we receive on the 1st. I'm a little bit obsessed with this app, and you'll find that if you do a quick Google search, there are some people that are really obsessed with this app. But it is super useful for me, and they're not sponsoring this video or anything. I just really enjoy it as someone who wants to be really organized with their money. One of the features that I love is the ability to get a summary of all of the bills that fall within one category. So at the very least, no matter what, if I do nothing else, it's going to cost me $6,196.77 to fund just the bare essentials using our first paycheck of the month. Under the essentials are our monthly subscriptions. These are things that in the event of an emergency, we would totally cancel all of these subscriptions. We would have a minor change of lifestyle, but these are things that are nice to have versus things that we must have. And if we really needed to cut down our budget, these would be the first things to go. So these are our monthly subscriptions. I have a subscription to a workout app, to apps that help me with my editing, Patreon, and some Apple storage. In non-essentials, I have $304.63 that is required from that first paycheck that we get every month. I can double down on this cool feature by clicking the essentials list as well as the monthly subscription list, and you'll see that together I need $6,501 from my first paycheck to handle all of these bills. That is a large chunk of our paycheck if we're looking at one paycheck of $9,233. Having fixed costs of $6,501 means that our fixed costs are 77%, which is really high for that first paycheck. But let's take a look at all of our fixed costs. That includes the essentials that are required from the 15th through the end of the month, and our niceties or nice to haves between the 15th and the 31st. In total, that's $8,296, which represents just under 45% of our total take-home pay. My goal is to keep this number under 50%, given that we live in a high cost of living area. Since everything is on track with our finances, I want to fund all of our essentials and all of our nice to haves as quickly as possible. So I'm going to take a look here in how much cash we have on hand. This total number of $22,381 takes into account what we have in our checking account and what we have in our savings account. I typically don't look at our retirement accounts or our investment accounts until the end of the year. So my mind thinks this is all I have and this is what I'm working with. In my budgeting app, I have brought in two bank accounts, my checking account and a savings account that we have attached to that checking account to cover any kind of overages or any kind of low-level emergencies. We also have external emergency funds in the event of some sort of catastrophe, but the two accounts here reflect money that I can move around if needed, and this savings account tends to fluctuate heavily depending on what's going on. The last 2 months, we have had some issues with our windows and with our HVAC system, and that is definitely reflected here. So the first thing that I want to know is how much money do I actually have to work with? And that number is not $22,000. First, I'm going to go into this savings goal section, and I'm going to fill up this emergency fund based on what I actually have in that savings account. So in that savings account is $2,683.93. So I know that effectively I have $19,697, and that number equals exactly what's in my checking account. The first thing I want to forward fund with this money is the essentials that are due between now and the next time I get paid. Those are all of those things listed within this essentials list. One of the features that I really like about this app is the ability to know what the sum or how much the total cost of a certain category is. Beyond the function of knowing what everything within this category costs, there is also this nifty auto-assign feature here. I know that in total this is $6,196, and if I click auto-assign the underfunded amount, that is going to fill up all of these buckets. You'll notice that the mortgage is fully funded, and that's because the mortgage is due in full every month. Water is appearing green, but you'll see that only 1/3 of this bar is shaded in. Let's take a look at that. For water, I do need $400 to pay that water bill, but my water bill only comes once every quarter, so I have 3 months to save $400. Since I just paid my water bill and I'm starting a new cycle, this paycheck needs to fund just a third of my total water bill. But I am currently on track by putting in $133 in this bucket. If I do the same thing for the next 2 months, when the water bill is due, I'll have everything that I need to pay that off already in reserve. Auto insurance also requires payment in full in a month, so I have to make sure that I fully fund that, and HOA fees are due once a quarter, just like my water bill. So with this paycheck, I only need to put in 1/3 of the total amount. If I've organized each category correctly and I have enough money, I'm going to see all greens here at the end, as well as green on top, indicating that I have more money left to assign. That is done, so I'm going to close it off. Next, I want to make sure to fund my monthly subscriptions. I'm going to click on the category and auto assign underfunded. This ensures that I have enough money to pay all of these subscription fees. So $304 covers these 7 subscriptions, and I still have money left over. So the next thing I'm going to fund are the essentials for the 15th and the subscriptions for the 15th through the end of the month. In total, that's going to be just under $2,000. I'm going to click that, and you can see here that I have assigned about $1,500. That means that $1,500 is now earmarked or set aside to pay for those bills when they come due in 2 weeks or so. And if I open that up, you'll see that those are all green and these are all green. Next are my annual subscriptions. Before getting really organized with my money, I would get hit with random annual subscriptions seemingly out of nowhere. So I've spent the last few months tracking all of these miscellaneous expenses and working to try to slowly fund each of these annual subscriptions 1 month at a time, so that when these annual subscriptions are due, I've already set enough money aside to go ahead and pay that bill, and I'm not surprised by a $200 or $300 bill that could potentially mess with my monthly budget. In my household, we have a lot of annual subscriptions, and I've organized these annual subscriptions based on the month that they're due. That helps me understand what is coming due soon versus several months down the line. The good thing about having sort of an automated program like this is that the program understands when something is due, and it prioritizes filling those buckets based on that due date. For example, we're currently in August, and I need to renew my Epidemic Sound annual subscription. That subscription is $120 a year. And since I started a new budget to walk you through the process of how I set everything up and organize my money and my money categories, I have not filled this bucket at all. Since this bill is due now, I have to assign all $120 so that I can stay on track to pay this bill. So I'm going to hit assign, and that is going to take $120 away from the total and add $120 here, meaning that I am ready to pay that bill. Compare that to my website subscription, you'll see that I will owe $292.56 in February, which is like 7 or 8 months down the line. In order to make sure that I'm on track as of today, I need to assign $41.80. Once I assign that, you'll see that I have a certain portion of the total allocated for that bill, but I have a green indicator here because I'm on track, and if I continue to fund that bucket over the next few months, when that bill comes due in February, I will already have the money set aside to go ahead and pay that, and I don't have to rework my total monthly budget just to pay this annual expense. The goal is to get all greens on the right-hand side, so let's go ahead and click Annual Subscriptions. It will take $761 for me to be fully caught up for the year. And now all of those annual subscriptions are green, and the ones that are coming up due shortly are closest to being fully funded, and the ones that are more distal have less funding. All right, so that covers my annual subscription. Next is savings goals, but we are going to skip that for now, but I will revisit it after I've gone through the entire budget, and we'll talk about the differences between how I plan for the first paycheck of the month compared to the second paycheck of the month. So let's leave that alone for now. Next is my weekly variable expenses. These are things that change depending on the month. Things like grooming my dogs vary depending on the month. Sometimes they will both be groomed, sometimes nobody's getting groomed. So these are things that vary and require me to do some manual inputs to make sure that my budget is fully balanced. And this is where I think full life organization really shines, because I have a fully up-to-date calendar that's going to help me have a good idea of how much I'll be spending in these three categories. Let's go into my Google Calendar, and I'm going to shut everything off except family and household. This is one of the benefits of having separate Google Calendars rather than utilizing one calendar and having a different color coding system. Having individual calendars for every life domain allows you to turn them on and off when you only want a view of a very specific life area or domain. If you're interested in learning more about my total life organization system, I'll leave a playlist up above. And if we've never met before, hi, my name is Dr. Jamie. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and behavioral scientist obsessed with performance optimization. And if you're interested in other videos on how to live an organized and productive life without sacrificing your mental health, consider subscribing to this channel. Back to the calendar. Taking a look at the month of August, it looks like I will have 2 cleaning sessions. Our household cleaners cost $207 a cleaning, which means that I will need $414 to fully fund our cleaning fund for the month. As for grooming, my dogs just got groomed, so there is no need to save for any grooming this month. Next are my son's tutoring fees. He is attending an online program for the rest of the summer, and we pay per class. He has 3 classes left. The classes are $28.08, meaning that we have to save $84.24 for that. So it looks like we have enough to cover those weekly variable expenses. Household spending accounts are the last accounts that I fill. My husband and I run all of our monthly expenses through our credit cards, and that's one of the reasons why it's essential for us to pre-plan for the coming month. That way, we're only putting charges on the credit card that we know we'll be able to pay off in full at the end of the month. So these expenses of $7,819 are expenses from last month, which are now due, and we want to make sure to clear this out every paycheck. So every 15 days, we pay our credit cards off in full and ensure that we don't accumulate any fees or interest. In order to fully pay that off, I'm going to click on this underfunded button, and now I have all of the money to pay off those credit cards in full. That leaves me with $2,159. I can now allocate that money into our household spending account. This is where we get to the end of the first month paycheck and we start planning for what we're going to do with the second paycheck. Since these are household spending accounts, things like groceries, allowance for my son, and also just discretionary spending for myself and my husband, I fund these accounts 50% of the way, since we expect another paycheck halfway through the month. I usually start from the bottom for our buffer. That's anything that I forgot to budget for, and it also gives us a buffer before we get to our next buffer into the savings account, which is a buffer for our larger emergency fund. And this is when she realized she might have too many buffers. So this is $100. For restaurants, we spend about $500 a month. Actually, we're trying to stay within that budget. So I'm going to put in $250 for groceries. For my son, I've actually already given him his allowance. I have some things that are set up in auto draft, and his allowance is one of the things that comes out on the first of the month. So I don't have to allocate any other money since I'm filming this video after that's already been taken out. That leaves $500 for my husband and $500 for myself for our individual discretionary funds for the first half of the month. Other than our household spending accounts, all of the other categories have been fully funded, meaning that we already have enough cash on hand to be able to get through the remainder of the month, even without our second paycheck. This means that theoretically, we are one paycheck ahead and not living paycheck to paycheck. That allows us to use that second paycheck to get ahead or to put toward other goals that we have moving forward. I'm happy to do a full video on my paycheck routine with my mid-month paycheck, and if you're interested in that, you can leave this video a thumbs up or leave a comment in the comment section down below. But I think that video would be a little bit less interesting and definitely shorter than this video, because we take that second paycheck and really try to save or invest as much of that as we can. The first thing I'm going to do when I get that paycheck on the 15th is identify my shortfalls here in household spending, and it's fairly easy to see that that's going to be $1,500. I also will want to refill my spending account and my husband's spending account. It would be nice to give us maybe $1,000 each. So if you add 1,000, 1,000, and the 1,500 that is left to fully fill up these accounts, that's going to take about $3,500 off of our next paycheck. That leaves a solid $6,000 for us to start refilling this liquid savings account, or for us to start funding additional savings goals. And as you might have guessed, I have a system for that. Let's close up my YNAB and open up my Notion page, where I focus on planning within certain life domains. This is my finance life domain, and there's some things that I want to update within this system. First, here on the very right, I have how much it costs for us to live, kind of like a bare minimum lifestyle. If I hop back into my budget, it's really easy to calculate what is our bare minimum cost of living. If I click on essentials for the 1st and essentials for the 15th, I see that covering these 12 essential categories costs us about $7,600 every month. So I'll put that in here. The reason I calculate that every so often is because I'm trying to gauge how much I should have in a liquid emergency fund. Now, my husband and I both have pretty stable jobs, so on the low end, we want to keep at least 1 month of expenses in our savings account, and at the higher end, we would say 3 months of expenses. If we want to have 1 to 3 months of expenses in this liquid amount, I would say we want about between $10,000 and $30,000. And since we're homeowners, we probably want to be on the higher end of that. And I think that a goal of $30,000 in our liquid emergency fund is a good goal. In the event of a major catastrophe, we would be able to access other funding, but I would feel most comfortable if we have an emergency fund around that $30,000 mark. With that goal in mind, let's head back to YNAB and set that as an actual goal. So in my savings goal, I have this emergency fund. It currently has $2,600. I want to set a goal for that. Let's create a target, and I would like to set a $30,000 goal, and I would like to achieve that by December of next year. So it gives me a long-ish runway. Let's get the end of the year. And we won't repeat it. We're just going to save that target. We are now at 8% of that target goal. We know that we're going to add a few $1,000s into that goal later on this month, so slowly over time we'll start making our way toward that goal. Let's take a look at some of these other goals. Moving down to this financial vision board, this is something that I update once a year, and at the beginning of this year I had set some financial goals for myself. Whenever I'm going through my payday routine and I see that I only have one line in my savings goals, I'm saving towards toward my emergency fund in this case. I always revisit this financial vision board to see if there's anything else that I can start saving for, any long-term goals that I can start attacking on a short-term basis. And I rely on this vision board to really guide what I said I wanted to do, and I also examine if I still even want to do these things. We set a goal to fill up my Roth IRA up to $7,000 for the year. And if you recall back in my budget, I did say that I had that $583 that I was putting aside every month for that. So that is actually completed. We did buy a couch this summer as part of this larger house update that we've been working on. And sure enough, after we bought the couch, then like 3 things broke around the house. So we bought the couch and have also a variety of other things, which have brought us to where we are right now. But the couch is complete, and we had originally wanted to update the studio, and I wanted to spend about $5,000 to do that, and we decided not to do that because we've had all of these other expenses, and we utilized some of the money that we had reserved for the studio to handle that. So instead of having a full update, I actually just moved the studio, and we do have some minor updates around here, and we will be doing some painting and potentially just some minor updates. So I'm going to change this from 5,000 to maybe 1,500. So that's still something that we're planning on spending money on this year. Next year, we're going to move to fully fund my husband's Roth IRA, so that will give us another investment account, and we're going to start that next year. We also had planned on going for an anniversary cruise, but that has changed now. We are planning to go to California for a wedding. My sister-in-law is getting married, so that has changed. I am going to delete this, and I'm going to add an image here. The program that I'm using is Notion. If you were wondering and you're not familiar with this, I pretty much organize my entire life on this. I am going to add an image here of a wedding. Delete that. And let's see how much money we think we're going to need for that. Oh, I didn't assign any money. I think that we are going to need, let's say $5,000 for that trip. We will be flying out. There's 3 of us that need to fly out. We'll have hotel fees, and we're also going to rent a car. So that is going to be that. This basement bathroom remodel, I don't know if it's going to happen next year, but I'll still leave that. We had a California trip planned for my husband in 2027 for his 40th birthday, and that still seems realistic. My son is due for a car in 2027, and we may want to do some additional remodels. Now that I have kind of a picture of what I want to do over the next year or two, I can see if I want to add any additional savings goals. I do think I want to add a savings goal for the studio as well as the California wedding so that we can start planning that. So let me set those goals. I'm going to add new savings goal, Jill's wedding, and studio upgrades. I'll add that. I like to add a little emoji. So let's add a wedding emoji, and my sister-in-law Jill is very blonde, so I'm going to add that. And studio upgrades, I'll add something like that. All right. Emergency fund goes on top since I try to organize things in order of priority, and then comes Jill's wedding and then my studio upgrades. For Jill's wedding, let's go ahead and create a target. Custom, I need this money set aside by, her wedding is in June, but I'll like to buy things ahead of schedule. So let's say April, May, I want $5,000, and that is going to be due on April 1st. Let's go with that. Save that target. I'll have to save $555 this month to be on track for that. And for the studio upgrades, I'm going to create a target. That target is going to be $1,500. And I'd like to work on that over the holidays. So let's go with November 15th. We'll save that target. That means $375 is what I need to set aside this month so that I am on track to have those $1,500 by November. This is why I like to do my savings goals at the end of my first paycheck of the month, because I want to make sure that I'm being mindful on how I allocate the second paycheck of the month. I could very easily just say we have a full paycheck and we can put it all toward discretionary spending. But when I'm being very mindful and purposeful about how I'm setting my savings goals over time, then I know that if I give myself $1,000 or $2,000 in my discretionary spending, I can spend that in good conscience and without any anxiety about financial goals that I might be forgetting or that are more important than that $300 camera lens that I want to buy. This is how I organize my money, but if you're interested in how I organize all things related to my 9-to-5 job, check out this video where I walk through my work organization system, or check out this video that YouTube thinks you'll like.